Have you ever had to think about a person you love having sex with another person? As a polyamorous person, that's just Tuesday for me. I remember when I was younger, the idea of people that I love having sex with other people was particularly daunting to me because I was never a person who had ever experienced love. And if you've listened to me talk about polyamory, you know that one of the things that I discovered after actually falling in love was that I had a wider capacity for it, which is part of why I define myself as polyamorous. As I've spoken about several times, I have several long-term partners and I love each one of them very much. And because I only date polyamorous people, of course, my partners have partners. So obviously, I've had to process the idea of my partners having sex with other people quite a bit. I think in the before times when I had anxieties about my partners having sex with other people, it was always about the idea that someone would be able to perform something for them that I can't. And nowadays, I see that as less of a bad thing and more of just a thing that makes the connection I have with my partners different. Even though I tend to have sex in a very particular way, it is different with every single one of my partners. And I don't really think of any of my partners as being worse or better than anyone else. But for a lot of people who are not polyamorous, and even some of whom who are, I'll say, there are a lot of anxieties that people have around the idea of their partner potentially being more sexually interested in a different person. And some people take that anxiety and morph it into a fetish. And that's actually what we're going to be talking about in this video, as a very controversial celebrity and a streamer who is also controversial but isn't quite a celebrity, at least to me, got into a little bit of controversy when they accidentally broadcasted that they had this particular fetish.
I'll get cucked and shit just for like to switch it up.
And I'm here as your residential degenerate to have a conversation with you about cuckoldry and all of its nuances and what these two people are specifically interested and my theories as to why. But I'm getting ahead of myself as per usual. Hi, my name is katblaque. And I like to think that I make content for introspective hot people. And if you're here, I'll assume that's you. And if you're brand new here, you know exactly what to do if this video pleases you. Click my button and join me right here on my channel. So I do not want to take full credit for this topic. I actually saw this topic on Ryan Beard's page. Ryan Beard makes a lot of very interesting videos. They are someone who has mentioned me in the past, and I occasionally do catch up with their videos, and I've really appreciated them. I love any person who is thoughtfully having conversations about things on this platform. So if you are curious, I will be linking that video in the description box below. But I wanted to give my perspective as a person who quite regularly engages with fetish and kink and BDSM and has a lot of experience within the swing community where this is a little bit of a common trope. And additionally, there's a lot of conversations to be had with the added nuance of race. I have not heard any of Kanye West's new music. Apparently, his entire album is called Cuck. Cuck is an upcoming studio album by American rapper Kanye West, also known as Ye. Media personality DJ Academics announced the album under the title World War III during a live stream in April 2nd, 2025, a week after the track of the same name was released as a single on March 26th. It just all seems a little bit like he's trying to get attention. Cuckoldry, for those of you guys who don't understand, is essentially a fetish where people enjoy the idea of someone having sex with their partner. For a lot of heterosexual men, it is actually a very common fetish. It references something that is a very real anxiety and a very real thing that people can develop a sort of interesting relationship with, a fetish for. I think Kanye West is struggling with some degree of mental illness. I also think that Kanye West is someone who is grasping for straws at this point because he's using shock to get attention to his art. But I still felt like it was an interesting conversation to be had because he actually does make some distinctions in this video that I actually think are worth talking about because, again, so much of this, in my opinion, touches on a lot of the conversations we're having in general. So Sneako is someone who I know barely anything about, I'll be honest with you. To my understanding, Sneako is someone who has been very problematic, very misogynistic.
What did you say? The woman! What? We love women. We love women. But not like transgenders.
But he has been very open about his previous interest in cuckoldry.
Because this was, imagine seeing the girl you love
get fucked.
Get fucked.
You love her?
The first time, as soon as I saw 3 pumps in, I just got up and walked out. I'm just like, I can't do that.
Anyway, let's watch this clip.
Because I definitely am more like Stag Vixen and shit. You guys know this term?
Yeah.
It's more like swap. It's kind of like, you like,
Same.
yeah. Like, people call us cucks and then cucks. I'll get cucked and shit just for like to switch it up. But
For the rush, you know.
For the rush.
Kind of rush.
Like be on the outside of the door and shit.
Car racing. Are we streaming or no?
Yeah.
We're streaming?
Oh shit, oh ding.
Oh, we're live?
Oh shit, oh I didn't want everyone to hear
Audio on or not?
that I'm
the
into
audio's
that.
It's off.
Now, one of the things I wanted to talk about right away is the distinction that they make, because the first thing you hear in the video is, oh, I'm Stag Vixen. And to really help you guys understand this, a lot of men tie their masculinity to their ability to get women. And so for a lot of men who have a cuck fetish, what they imagine when a man is sexually besting them and taking their women is that in the process of that, they are feminized in one way or another, right? So it's really common for feminization to be a part of the cuck experience. If you look up any of this porn, you will probably see that that's part of it, right? You got the husband. Oftentimes, this is very racially influenced. So you got the white couple. The white husband is pathetic. He's sad. He's, not even a real man. Like some of the memes that these people are into will go into all of that, like the thought process of it. They make a distinction between typical cuckoldry and Stag Vixen because in a Stag Vixen dynamic, it's a little bit more equitable, I guess, between the couples. A Stag Vixen is more so, here is a man in a relationship with a woman, right? He is very proud of the idea of his partner having sex with other men. And he is eager to present his woman, his hot wife, that's typically the term that is used, to someone who is good at what they do. And it isn't degrading. It isn't like feminizing. There is no part of the exchange where the man gets put down. So that's an important distinction because really what these guys are saying is they like to watch their partners with other men, but they don't necessarily want to be degraded for it. And side note, I actually want to make this very clear. My issue with Sneako and Kanye is the way that they use their actual misogyny to abuse women. It's not necessarily that stuff like this turns them on. To me, being degraded sexually, it's not something I'm personally into, but it's something that to me is pretty neutral, right? If you're someone who is into this stuff, I don't think that it's necessarily a bad thing. If you sexualize this idea of someone having sex with your partner and doing a better job than you, I honestly don't have a real issue with it. It's that sometimes these men take this stuff and then actually hurt people with it. Like when I see Kanye with his, I guess now ex-wife, Bianca Censori, to me, the optics of that, it's immensely abusive. Like it is so degrading, and it's degrading in a way that does feel abusive to her because she never really seems like she's comfortable with it. And I would feel a little bit differently about it if she was. But to me, the fact that she never seems like she is tells me that something is afoot, and that is worth acknowledging as an issue. Coming from the perspective that I come from, I know people who do this stuff all the time, and they're not hurting their partners to do it because everyone is communicating and they're not trying to pressure someone into doing something that they're not wanting to do. There are couples, for example, where the husband will pretend to catch the wife and things like that, or maybe the wife will pretend that she's getting caught and the guy doesn't. Stuff like that. Like, maybe people should communicate all the realities of these things, but it's role play. And I want for a lot of people to understand that whenever I talk about BDSM and kink and fetish, it's all play. It's all supposed to be play. It's not supposed to be real. It's not supposed to be you're actually doing these things. It's supposed to be escapism and play. So one of the interesting things I thought when I was watching this is, wow, they're talking about it, because this is a really common fetish, but it's not necessarily a common fetish that men openly discuss with each other, at least in this way. Like, it is interesting to watch both of these men openly speak about this because in a weird way, it feels progressive. But of course, these are men who are very loudly misogynistic, so it's impossible to ignore that layer of it. And when you listen to a lot of red pill men debate back and forth with each other, you will notice it come up quite a bit, because a lot of these men are having conversations about masculinity. And for a lot of men, the thing that makes them masculine is the way that they're able to subjugate women. Of course, this is what we describe as toxic masculinity, a type of masculinity that would require the dejection of women, the disrespect of women, right? It is something that cannot stand on its own 2 feet. It requires the abuse and the polarity between man and woman. And so while cuckoldry is definitely something you don't just see within heterosexual dynamics, it is gendered for a lot of men. And for a lot of men, they tie their masculinity to how many women they're able to get and how many women are able to celebrate them as having a particular sexual prowess. Now, one of the interesting things I'll say about watching men have these conversations is being someone who's tied to a lot of sex positive communities, who is surrounded by people who have a very thoughtful approach to sex and think very deeply about sexual satisfaction and things like that. There are people out there who are making a lot of people happy because they really do know what they're doing. But some of those people are not always necessarily the people who you would imagine as the most hyper masculine man in the world. Like right now, when I think of the men in the communities that I'm part of that are well known as like men who are good at the thing sexually, some of these dudes are a little bit feminine. Some of these dudes have a little bit of nail polish on their fingers and maybe a little bit of eyeliner. Now, of course, some people have figured out that's the trick, right? But what I'm trying to say is a lot of men don't understand that this constant need to reinforce their masculinity prevents them from feeling the way that a lot of women would like to be satisfied. More often than not, these men are going to want to find partners who they can tell this is what sexually satisfies you instead of showing them what sexually satisfies them. Do you know what I mean? Like, these men are often not really interested in actually sexually satisfying a woman because in some contexts, it may require that they do things that may to some people make them seem less than masculine. Great example of this is men who refuse to give women oral sex, right? Because the idea of a man going down on a woman for some men is him lowering himself to satisfy a woman. And satisfying a woman, being invested in her pleasure, is to some of these men seen as less than masculine, because being invested in pleasure is something that women should be doing. Women should be satisfying whatever men want, right? And so it is interesting to observe these conversations being had with people who stand in such sharp opposition to really being the sort of men that these women would actually want to be with. It's not a coincidence that both Sneako and Kanye West have conservative politics and are huge supporters of Donald Trump, right? For a lot of these men, their dream is controlling a woman. And unfortunately, one of the things that I've definitely seen in this particular fetish is some men will get into relationships with women and they have this fetish, and it encourages them to pressure their partners into doing things that they don't want to do with other men. That is something I've observed more than once. And it's sad to me that for some men, that's the way that they think of it. Even if there's a part of me that hears parts of this and is, oh, this sounds a little bit progressive. I also do understand that for these men, they want to own women. And so in this scenario where they enjoy being cucked, more often than not, it's going to be someone who probably doesn't even really want to be there to begin with, participating in this fetish for his pleasure. And that's a very different thing than what a lot of the couples I know who have this fetish are doing when they invite someone into their bedroom. For a lot of white men who are interested in cuckoldry, it is racialized. Recently, I made a video about Shannon Sharp where I talk a little bit about race play. Go and click over here and check that video out. But race play is a very common layer of cuckoldry because quite frequently the idea is that Black men, because of their British broadcast company capabilities, are sexually superior and naturally degrade white men when they sleep with their partners. And a lot of white men, because they have such, frankly, a porn brain when it comes to Black men, they have this anxiety about their partners being with Black men. This is something you see quite a bit amongst white fathers. I'm reminded of Hulk Hogan's call to Brooke Hogan, who was hanging out with too many Black men, right? White men often have this anxiety around white women having sex with Black men. And for some of those men, they will sexualize that and it will develop into a fetish. And it's not a coincidence that description doesn't sound all too different from some of the things that white nationalists think and feel. Cuckoldry is a topic that comes up a lot in the context of white nationalism because one of the main anxieties that white nationalists have is that at some point, white women are going to have mostly children that are not white. And therefore, that will lead to the extinction of the white race via breeding, essentially. That's what white genocide is. Being in the position that I'm in as a person who exists in certain margins and has been at a lot of swinger events and at a lot of kinky sort of spaces, I run into so many people who clearly have more conservative daily lives who are very into all of this stuff. Anyway, on that note, that is all I have to say about this particular issue. I'm so curious what you guys have to say about this. Is this a fetish that you have? Are you someone who has anxiety around the idea of your partner being with other people? I think that's a very normal feeling. As a polyamorous person, I don't want to impress that the only way for you to be woke or whatever is to get over that sort of stuff. I think it's a very normal way to feel. And if you feel that way, it's fine. I definitely think that's okay. I do feel like this stuff is worth talking about because I do think that when we have these conversations, it could lead to us maybe understanding why we feel the way we do even more. I tossed this book earlier, but I would actually suggest it for people who are currently looking into some form of non-monogamy for themselves. It is a book called The Ethical Slut. This has been in my library for quite some time. And it's got a lot of really great information in it. And it's not really even a book that you necessarily need to read if you are polyamorous. You can read it if you're monogamous. There's a lot of information in here, lessons within this book that I think would be really good for people who are trying to figure it out for themselves. Like most things, it's not perfect, but I think it's a really great place to start. Anyway, on that note, before I go, I want to thank the last 3 members of my Patreon. Shout out to Zahara, Cass Roth, and Victoria Golding. Thank you so much for joining my Patreon. I appreciate all the love and support I get over there. By the time you guys see this video, there should be a lot of content on my Patreon, a lot of extra content on my Patreon. So I'm really, really, really excited to share more stuff with you guys over there. And hopefully you guys will enjoy what I do have there. The same goes for my YouTube members. I really appreciate those of you guys who support me over on Patreon, and also those of you guys who support me over here on YouTube members. On both platforms, I post exclusive content, but on YouTube, you get access to my backlog of videos that I have since archived and removed from the public facing aspect of my YouTube channel. Anyway, on that note, I will talk to you guys later. And as per usual, I want you to always remember and to never forget that you are beautiful and you are loved. Bye.